I don't believe they're included in that direct fire services definition at this time.
So that means that E911 could be contracted out under a managed competition scenario?
Under this draft, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Johnston?
Actually, Mr. Birch.
Mr. Birch is going to get.
Well, Cheryl actually led into mine as far as managed competition. One thing you mentioned was the bargaining unit bidding on the service, and that kind of sent me a little shivers because my definition of managed competition is it's a service unit that would be bargaining or responding to the RFP, which includes union members. Is that your idea?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it also depends on which definition of managed competition.
Right, but I think that is pretty
unit.
clear.
It is a unit, it's not a union, it is a unit.
So, to use Ms. Frasca's example, if we went down, and I know that we have a lot to do on this issue, but for the E99, or for the dispatch, we currently have 2 dispatches, right?
You have one E91, you have one E11 system, okay, 911 system rather, and then you have 2 dispatch centers.
Right.
They receive the information from the 911.
And so as far as my understanding of managed competition, it takes 3 units to bid on whatever the service is. Let's see, with the cost of living, when that is calculated, does that include medical costs?
I believe medical costs are part of this.
The component piece of the CPI.
And in your medical costs, as you have this board and addressing the medical costs, you are looking at having maybe more than one plan to offer. It's just how we participate, is that correct? Or not we, but how the municipality participates, what our financial obligation is.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
The municipality might have A, B, C medical plan, and or you might have a union that has their own plan.
Correct.
And what we're trying to clarify and streamline is the municipal's financial contribution.
Yes.
We want to standardize that contribution.
And I just wanted to I have many questions as far as assembly being final arbitration, as you know, and I will be following up with emails on this. But I have a concern. Do you look at the assembly as the final arbitrator? Do you look at that as quasi-judicial, or do you look at it as a vote?
No, I look at it. I think what this anticipates is not to be quasi-judicial. You're not going to take, the parties aren't going to present cases to you other than through the normal assembly process. They may speak to it, but they won't have their attorney calling witnesses or anything else. But it is more of the appropriation process. This is the legislative body responsible for all appropriations, and it's not so much of a policy issue as, well, it is, because it's how the employees are going to be treated. But you're looking at the budget issue and deciding whether to appropriate and whether to make policy, just like anything else. It's not going to be a different process than any other ordinance.
Thank you all.
Mr. Birch. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for an excellent briefing. It's good to walk through this. And while it has a longstanding impact, I think it's very helpful to have it presented in a manner that allows us to kind of walk through it. One of the critical issues, and based on the communications I've received, is how is this, as an employee, how is this going to impact me? And I mean, I've gotten, messages from people say, oh, I'm going to get a 30% cut in pay as soon as this happens. And I guess something that would be constructive, and I know we talked about grandfathering in, and some of these things are going to be carried forward, is it would be helpful to have some specifics on, kind of maybe even a worst case scenario. If somebody's, really ramped up here and after a new agreement's negotiated under the guidelines presented here, which, are very useful, how much, what can that impact somebody? Or would they be, because you have people who have, home mortgages and, kids in school and, a lot of obligations. And I guess it's important to me to understand, how that would directly impact an individual employee. And not kind of, recognizing there's a lot of, variables there but it would be constructive to understand that.
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind is, the current contracts are not going to be invalidated.
Right.
Now, there's kind of a legal argument that you could do a little. The mayor said, we're not tackling that one. Contracts are going to run their course, so no one's going to tomorrow night wake up and have their paychecks cut. But that then brings us to the next round of negotiations and implementing these policies. And, if someone is losing incentives for this team, that team, and the other team, I mean, that's going to be looked at closely. Should that position be reclassified? Should that be renegotiated? That is part of the wage negotiation. And I'm sure, probably the bulk of the time in that next round of negotiations is going to be focusing on, you're really costing us this much, you've got to move us to this level, and the back and forth.
And I recognize that we've got a composite figure. I mean, we looked at, like one of your slides presented, that, in 2009, the average municipal compensation with wage and benefits was $92,000, and it's gone up to 117,000 or something like that. So there's been a 22% increase. When you have CPI, has been less than half of that. So there's an imbalance there, obviously, in the growth. But if you're looking at a composite, because some employees may choose to have more in a benefit component or a retirement component as opposed to a wage component. So is it my understanding then that the way the definitions here, you're going to basically look at everything in a complete package? So you're looking at compensation completely, benefits as well as salary.
That was the driving purpose of this direct labor cost. That it's a number that it actually means something.
Great. Well, good. Well, great effort. Thank you. Excuse my question.
That completes my, I've got a couple in the queue, but I'm wrapping up at 3 o'clock, so I want to make sure that everybody understands that next Wednesday at noon, we will have another work session here that's going to be presented by Labor. Another 2-hour session. We'll have it in exactly the same way, but we'll have different presenters at that time. So at noon on the 20th, this location. Please get that on your calendar. And Ms. Gray Jackson, you
Thank you,
have...
Mr. Chairman. Just two really quick questions, okay? And the first one is, if implemented, could managed competition affect the employment of any current employee?
It very well could. That's
Okay.
what it's about. We carve out this group performing this service, and they're going to put together a competitive bid. They'll probably get it, and we'll get some savings, or we'll get more performance, but there's no guarantees.
And for me, that's an unfortunate circumstance. It really is. And my second question is, could the changes in pay enhancement, service recognition, and longevity, PIP and PSP, could that change affect the pay of any current employee?
It's not going to affect the current pay of any current employee. And in fact, longevity and service recognition, they stay the same as they have been. There's nobody going into those programs, with the exception of we're operating under the old contract in plumbers, so they still have that there. as far as PIP, people will be frozen at their current levels. We're not taking away that 6.5% they earn, but they're not going to be able to jump up to 13%.
So then it will, in essence, affect the pay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Osiander and then Mr. Horniman.
It's a procedural question, sir. I am growing increasingly concerned about our meeting on the 26th regarding time. I, as you know, have spent a whole lot of effort and energy on Title 21 issues. And I don't envision with the current schedule that we can deal with both this and Title 21 on the 26th. My preference would be that you, sir, or someone talk to the two bargaining groups that are about to come up for bargaining and ask if we could delay the beginning of bargaining so we could have a little time to breathe here and work through this. So could you think about that, please? And also, could you secondarily make a real clear announcement so that folks know really what we're going to be doing on the 26th? So we don't get a lot of folks showing up and then it turns out their topic isn't going to be addressed.
I've had a indirect conversation already, and I will actually make that announcement when we do the work session on
sorry.
Wednesday.
All right.
But in all probability, what we're going to have is a special assembly meeting on the 27th
Oh,
for testimony, because I don't think we probably will get to this with dealing with Title 21, and I don't want to have somebody just sitting there all evening waiting and then find out that we get it. I don't know that we'll get through. Matter of fact, quite honestly, I'm not sure that we will get through Title 21 that evening. But I do want to be able to have, when we have public testimony on this, we know specifically when we're going to do it, and we don't have people having to stand. We will also have, we're trying to make arrangements to have the Wilda Marston Theater with TV set up in there as well.
we have
So-
done that in the past.
Yes, so we can accommodate it. But like I say, I'm chatting with
Super.
union leaders in regards to that.
Thank you, sir.
Because I want to work closely with them
Thank you.
to be able to
Thank you
accommodate
very
that.
much.
Yes, Mr. Starr,
Well,
Mr. Horn.
just to that end, part of the discussion on Title 21 is how many amendments, where are they at, when are we going to see them? Can you answer that now?
We are working through a big pile that just came in on the 12th deadline that the mayor gave us. I'm hoping to have a consolidated amendment sheet that covers almost everything that I think will be fairly easy to do. I don't know what individual assembly members are going to do. The only
And I
individual,
don't mean to catch up, my amendments are predicated on what you're already going to address, but I don't know what you're already going to address.
you'll get them Monday
Okay, thank you.
at the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman, I,
Couple other things here then. One is, and I think the answer was on the dispatch center, presupposing managed competition. Anchorage area, Alaska, could conceivably our E911 be entered in India? I mean, I'm just,
No.
I'll apologize. I am here to answer legal questions. Hopefully I didn't get, I've spent so much time in here, I probably got a little bit more active in arguing things than I should. But we'd have to go to the operational people on that. I mean,
nothing in here says it's restricted to, you see what I'm saying? I mean, if we're looking at trying to save costs and we're trying to manage the competition.
well, most contracts over 30,000 go to the assembly, so that's, you're still ultimately.
Okay, and then a couple things. You had talked about, you'd spent hours. How long is this buildup of the changes at 3.70? How much time has been spent on this? For how long?
That's a really good question.
It is a good question.
But parts of it have been looked at for years, I believe. I started looking at it months ago. When did it start in earnest? I don't know. It is very much a many cooks in the kitchen process. What I will say is, a little bit of the timing is do it now or it's not going to be done. We've got negotiations starting.
Sure.
We've got negotiations going on over the next couple of years. We may end up having a few breaks in there, but we can't predict them in advance with any kind of certainty as to when that'll happen, because each negotiation takes its own process. And I think Ms. Jackson had asked, Ray Jackson, one of our administrators to get a legal opinion, but the ERB was very clear in the 1990s that the Assembly can pass a general change of policy, amend 370 at any point, even in the middle of negotiations, and it's binding. Although I caution on that, in that, if it was just a minor change and the people negotiating were agreeable to it, yeah, that's no big deal. But if you were to make major changes in the middle of a negotiation, that's like throwing cyanide into the well. It's just going to poison everything. And I think beyond that, people can't negotiate if they don't know what the rules are. We cannot plan for negotiations. We cannot do negotiations. It might be these rules, A, it might be rules B, or it might be rules behind door number C. We don't know. Negotiations can't take place if there is any kind of amendment, significant amendments going to be happening to this ordinance, which are long overdue.
So that goes back to